Uzumaki was written and illustrated by Junji Ito. His initial desire was to create a story about strange changes that would occur to people living in a very long, traditional Japanese terraced house. This story would have been based on Ito's personal experience living in such a house as a child. During the process of finding a way to draw such a long building, Ito was inspired by the shape of a mosquito coil and decided he could make the building long by having it spiral. In Japanese culture and traditions, the shape of a spiral represents water and nothing sinister. As water flows according to the surface, the spiral represents being able to flow with things and adjust yourself to whatever difficult situation or conditions you find yourself in. In the Japanese media, spirals are typically not representative of anything scary. In fact, they are most often placed on top of characters' cheeks and represent cuteness or warmth. Junji Ito turns that convention upside down here. Ito has noted that the spiral is a mysterious pattern and described writing Uzumaki as an attempt to learn the secrets of the spiral. Ito sought inspiration by methods such as staring at spirals, researching spirals, creating spiral patterns by draining water from bathtubs, eating foods with spiral patterns, and raising snails. Looking back on the series in 2006, Ito stated that while he was still uncertain what the spiral stood for, he thought it might be representative of infinity. Now let's head on to the series. The spiral started off as a strange, unexplained phenomenon in the small town of Kurozu-cho, seemingly coming from the depths of Dragonfly Pond, which is in the exact center of the town, and generally bringing insanity to those affected by it through objects associated with a spiral shape. The spiral appears to have a mind of its own, as it particularly targets Kirigoshima, the protagonist of the manga. Over time, it is discovered that the spiral is actually an ancient curse on the town, which affects its civilians at irregular intervals. The exact nature or motives of the curse, however, are unknown. No conclusive description of the spiral is made until the very final chapter of the story, which I'll cover in the upcoming minutes. Why don't we start with its appearance? The spiral is an abstract entity and does not take on a specific form, though it has also shown itself as a spiral or multiple spirals in everyday objects, indicating its presence. The source of the spiral, however, is found deep under Dragonfly Pond, where there's a large, seemingly sentient city made entirely out of spirals. In the center of the city is a tall spire with a spiral staircase. When the spiral has completed its goal in ruling Kurozu-cho, the spire acts as a drill and fills up the entrance to the cave. But what kind of nature does it have? The spiral is a mysterious and malevolent entity or force that brutally wipes out the entire population of Kurozu-cho every few centuries or millennia at irregular intervals. The true identity and nature of the spiral are unknown, though it does seem to be sentient to an extent, as shown when it repeatedly takes an interest in Kiri. It may or may not originate from the city of spirals underneath Kurozu-cho. Whether the spiral is a curse, an infection, a being, or a force is completely unknown. What we do know is that it can infect and then control the minds and bodies of humans. According to the manga, the spiral can only be seen, heard, or felt by people who are cursed. But one thing is confirmed: the spiral only affects Kurozu-cho and follows a pattern when killing off the town. The pattern goes like this. First come the random deaths and disappearances, and strange cases of obsession with the pattern. Then come more severe effects such as multiple hurricanes and tornadoes. Then the town becomes an inescapable pile of rubble, until finally Kurozu-cho is rebuilt and appears as a giant spiral row house, and everyone inside is sucked into the city of spirals. Now comes another question which I think not everyone asks. Does it have a personality? As revealed by Shuichi's deductions about the Spiral City in Uzumaki's last chapter, the Spiral City that serves as the Spiral Center has a distinct personality, having grown jealous and vindictive over no one being able to observe the countless spirals that make up its architecture, as demonstrated by how it uses its powers to force the mutated citizens of Kurozu-cho that were drawn into the cavern it inhabits to gaze upon its form forever. And what is why, people, you should always appreciate beautiful things when you see them. How many abilities does it possess, and are there any limitations to them? Well, let me explain. First up in the list of abilities is physical interactions. Being a nearly omnipotent force, the spiral can control the minds and bodies of humans and animals. It can also bend nature and the laws of physics to its own will, as it demonstrates constantly. As demonstrated in Chapter 3, The Scar, and Chapter 20, Galaxies, the spiral can also grant humans supernatural abilities before killing them. As also seen in Chapter 20, it is capable of telepathic communication with humans, and may be present throughout the entire universe and capable of controlling entire galaxies. It can also deform and mutate humans into humanoid snails. Secondly, the spiral can control the weather, atmosphere, and air pressure inside Kurozu-cho, as well as the ocean within the town's limits. It can use stones and bricks to produce a scorching light, as seen in Chapter 9. As shown in Chapter 14, Butterflies, and onwards, the spiral is able to effectively close Kurozu-cho from being entered or exited. Did you know the spiral has control over time as well? Moving on to another one, during the end stage of its campaign to rule over Kurozu-cho, the spiral's powers become nigh omnipotent. It gains the ability to control the flow of time as it sees fit, with those attempting to escape the town sent on a path that returns them towards the spiral's true form, the Spiral City, whilst at the same time subjecting them to time dilation, making a period ranging from months to years to pass in their absence. Let's talk about the movie for a second. In the movie, the spiral is significantly less powerful. It seems less skilled at infecting people's minds than their bodies, is not sapient in any way and thus cannot communicate, cannot affect the abilities of humans, and is confined entirely to Kurozu-cho with no implication of controlling other galaxies. It can control the clouds, but not the rest of the weather or air pressure, and can only control the water in Dragonfly Pond as opposed to the ocean. Additionally, the spiral seems not to be able to control animals or plants, only humans. It is also incapable of forcibly making the town impossible to leave. In short, it was nerfed as FU*K in the movie. Also, I have a bonus one for you, which you'll find amazing. In Galaxies, a bonus chapter that was originally going to be part of the main story, the spiral is even seen controlling entire galaxies at one point, though the canonicity of Galaxies can be debated. Assuming Galaxies is canon, it suggests that the spiral's curse is a near-universal force, albeit one that can only be perceived from within the boundaries of Kurozu-cho. Can there be someone immune to its effects? While most characters who became contaminated died within a few days, some people seem to have a heightened immunity to the spiral. A few such people being Shuichi Saito, who was fully capable of seeing and interacting with the spiral without ever becoming contaminated, Kiri and Yasuo Goshima, who were contaminated multiple times and recovered, and Mrs. Goshima, who was contaminated once and recovered. Whether this immunity is natural or achieved somehow is entirely unknown, though in the case of the Goshimas, it is very likely that it is natural as they knew nothing of the spiral. There are many fan speculations as to why Shuichi is completely immune. Fans love doing these types of things, don't they? Do you think there's more to the spiral? Or is it just an unstoppable force of nature that is bound to bring destruction and chaos? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. If you'd like to see more anime content, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments which anime we should do next.